In this video, we are going to talk about what it was like for me as the host growing up with DID. But before we get into that, we wanted to thank all of our wonderful subscribers and everyone who's been commenting. We really appreciate all of you. And don't forget that if anybody ever wants to talk to any of us, feel free to comment and send us emails or communicate with us on Twitter. We're really happy to talk to anybody who wants to talk to us. As long as you're being kind and respectful, we will talk to you. Now, before we start, I wanted to cover a couple of things about our videos coming up in the future. So sometime either this week or next week, depending on when we get enough material, we wanted to do a Q&A with your guys' questions. So comment down below any questions that you'd like to ask any of us, and once we get at least 5 appropriate questions, we will do a video. If we have more than 5, then we will do another video about Q&A later. And I also wanted to let all of you know that when we reach 100 subscribers, we want to celebrate by doing a live stream. So you have that to look forward to also. Hey everybody! So growing up with DID was very confusing a lot of the time. I mean, it was so completely out there, but I thought it was normal because I didn't realize that not everybody talked to these other people and that not everybody had these experiences of having these other people that they shared a head with. It wasn't until we got older and started being exposed to more people that we learned that not everybody was like us, and that's when those dissociative barriers started to really come down, and I started to be unable to remember the others and be unable to talk to them. And so by the time we hit kindergarten, I really couldn't remember that these people existed. And I was not at all okay. I would miss months, sometimes years of time and have no idea where it went. I remember once sitting in class and the teacher asked us all to write the date on the paper, so I wrote down the date I thought it was, and the teacher said to me, "It's not October." And I said, "What?" And she said, "It's not October." And I said, "Oh, well, what month is it?" She said, "It's January." And I said, "Oh, I must have just forgot." And then I changed it. And things like that happened a lot growing up. I would think that it was one day or month or year, and it was really a different one. Or I would find myself sitting somewhere, have no idea how I got there, or when I got there, or why I was there. And it was really honestly very scary a lot of the time. And a lot of the other kids were really not very nice. We got bullied a lot. And, it was always, "You're so weird, you act funny. You're not normal." And, we never really understood why. And I was really confused about why these kids, were so mean and why they, treated me that way. And so, I was really lonely as a kid. Now, I mean, I'm sure that that was probably exacerbated by the fact that I'm actually autistic. I'm on the autism spectrum. I'm the only member of our system that I'm aware of who is autistic. So, that probably had something to do with some of the social struggles, but the kids being mean and, saying you act weird, I mean, my behavior was pretty average for a kid. I mean, I liked to play and, you know, all of that stuff. A lot of kids didn't like that I was smart, but, I didn't expect to be treated like such an outcast. And so I have huge, huge gaps of time for grade school that I don't remember. In fact, there's very little of grade school I can actually consciously recall. And while I can recall some time at school, because school was a relatively safe place outside of the bullying, home is a completely different story. Most of our childhood is a blank to me at home, especially nighttime, because during our childhood and most of our lives, I was not aware at night, except for my initial birth into our system. And that's because someone else took over as the nighttime host, the person who dealt with the specific trauma that was occurring at night. And so during the day, I would be aware of a lot of things, and there was a lot of abuse that I was aware of because that was part of our trauma. But I wasn't really sure what was going on a lot of the time. Another really interesting thing was having people come up to you and be like, "Oh, hey, hi, how you doing?" Like they know you, and you're like, "Oh, hi," and you're thinking to yourself, "Who is this person?" But you pretend to know who they are because otherwise that would be weird, right? So that's what grade school was pretty much like until my mother took us away from the very bad situation we were living in with our father, because he was a really bad guy, and things started to get a little better as we got into therapy, and we were able to work through some stuff. But because of the big gaps in memory, there was a lot of stuff that I couldn't really get any help with, and because I wasn't aware of the others, there wasn't really a lot I could do. And I mean, that was not the first time we'd been taken to therapy. Our mother actually took us to therapy when we were really young, like probably around the age that I was born into our system, actually, which was 3, because she suspected something not okay was going on, but none of the therapists she took us to could ever figure out what was wrong. They're like, "We don't know." And that's because DID is such a hidden disorder. A lot of people just aren't aware of what it really looks like, especially in kids. But moving on from that, as I got older, things got easier in some ways and harder in others. When we got to middle school, I started to be able to remember more because there was not as much bad stuff going on. But we still didn't have a great home situation because we had a stepfather who had a serious drug problem, and that contributed a lot of issues. He was not very nice because of his addiction. And so that meant for, a lot of depression and a lot of anxiety and a lot of self-harm, most of which was done by another system member named Shadow, who you may meet in a later video if she's comfortable doing one. But then after middle school, we moved up to high school, and things started to get a little better. But then we got in with a group of people where one of our quote-unquote friends was very abusive and unkind toward me and us, and that led to a lot of problems. And one of the carryovers from middle school was that we carried a lot of anger because things had just been really messed up. And it was honestly just terrifying half the time because I would be sitting there talking to my friends in high school, and they would be telling me something, and then I'd suddenly come around and realize that we were on a completely different topic and I had no idea what they were talking about. And, my friends used to say how I would just space off and they couldn't get my attention. Or, I would be just sitting there talking to them and then suddenly start talking about something else. Or I'd repeat myself a bunch of different times. And I wasn't aware of any of this at all. So it just got more and more and more confusing. Well, then, after our stepfather was no longer in our lives and I had gone off to college, things started to get a lot better. I started to be able to remember more. I was losing a lot less time. And, things were going a lot better. Though I did still lose time on occasion. In fact, once I actually missed an entire test. And not just I wasn't there for the test, I didn't even take the test because I didn't know we had one. So I didn't show up for the test, and that really freaked me out, and I had no idea what to do about that. So that was really, really hard, and that was something that had never happened before specifically, but other kinds of situations where I didn't know about something, and then it came up, and I was like, oh no, what do I do? Had happened. So it was really, really confusing. But once my daughter was born, I started being able to remember a lot more often because, having her around really helps keep me grounded. But growing up with DID, it was confusing, it was scary, and I spent a lot of time having absolutely no idea who I was, no idea what was going on, no idea where I was or how I got there, and honestly having no idea what to do or how to feel safe. Well, I hope you all liked this video, and if you did, please like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Have a good day, everybody.